My parents surprised me with a flight home, saying we miss you so much, please come back to see the family. I landed excited to reconnect, and as soon as I entered the house, I found it empty except for 3 young children and a hastily written note saying please take care of the kids, we'll be back soon. My sister immediately texted, don't forget to take the trash out and feed them dinner. I stayed calm and just did what they didn't expect, called her ex-husband to pick up his children. Now the children are safe with their father, and my family is flying back in panic. I'm Elena, 28 years old, and I moved across the country to Portland 2 years ago for a better job opportunity. My family lives in Westerville, Ohio, my parents Luca and Isabella, and my older sister Annika who's 32. Annika has 3 kids, Sophia, 8, Tyler, 6, and little Laura, 4. Their father is Annika's ex-husband Thomas, who she divorced 3 years ago after what she described as irreconcilable differences, though I suspect it had more to do with her inability to handle responsibility and Thomas getting tired of being the only functional parent. Since moving to Portland, I've maintained a cordial but distant relationship with my family. I visit twice a year, Christmas and maybe one summer visit, and we text occasionally. It's not that I don't love them, but there's always been this dynamic where I'm expected to drop everything to help Annika with her kids whenever she has a crisis. When I lived locally, I was constantly being guilted into babysitting because she needed a break or had some emergency that always seemed to involve going out with friends. Even after she and Thomas divorced, Annika would still call me when Thomas was running late for pickups, asking me to stay with the kids until he arrived, which turned my quick visits into extended babysitting sessions. Moving away was honestly liberating. I built a career in locating, made genuine friendships, and for the first time in my adult life, my weekends were my own. No more frantic calls at 10 p.m. asking if I could watch the kids because Annika's date was going well, or showing up to find the house in chaos because she decided to take a spontaneous girls' trip to Nashville. Last Wednesday, I was wrapping up a project at work when my phone rang. It was my mom, Isabella, and she sounded unusually excited. Elena, honey. We have such wonderful news. Your father and I have been talking, and we miss you so terribly. We want to fly you home this weekend, our treat. We've already booked your ticket. I was taken aback. My parents aren't typically spontaneous people, and they've never offered to pay for my flights before. Usually, visiting home was something I had to budget for months in advance. Mom, that's really sweet, but I have plans this weekend. Maybe we could look at next month instead? Oh, but we've already bought the ticket. It's non-refundable, and Annika is so excited to see you. The kids have been asking about Aunt Elena constantly. Please, just this once? We all miss you so much. The guilt trip was strong, but there was something in her voice that seemed genuine. Maybe they really did miss me. Maybe Annika had grown up and genuinely wanted to reconnect as sisters. I've been feeling a bit homesick lately, especially with the holidays approaching. What dates are we talking about? This Friday evening. You'd fly in around 6 p.m., and we could have the whole weekend together. Just family time, no pressure. We want to show you how much we appreciate you. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I rearranged my weekend plans, asked my neighbor to water my plants, and packed for what I thought would be a relaxing family visit. The flight confirmation came through within an hour. They really had already booked everything. Friday came, and I was actually excited on the plane. Maybe this would be the fresh start our family needed. Maybe Annika had matured since becoming a single mom, and we could finally have the sister relationship I'd always wanted. I landed at Cleveland Hopkins around 6:15 p.m., texted my parents that I'd arrived safely, and took the airport shuttle to the nearby hotel where I'd arranged to rent a car, a cheaper option than a direct rideshare to Westerville. The drive through my old suburb brought back memories, some good, some complicated, but I felt optimistic. The house looked exactly the same from the outside. Dad's car was in the driveway, and I could see lights on inside. I used my old key, calling out as I walked in. Hello? Mom? Dad? I'm here. Silence. That's when I heard it, the sound of a cartoon playing from the living room, and then Sophia's voice. Aunt Elena? Is that you? I walked into the living room and found all 3 of Annika's kids sitting on the couch in their pajamas, watching Netflix on the iPad. Sophia, the oldest, looked relieved to see me. Tyler was half asleep, and little Laura ran over and hugged my legs. Where are your mom and grandparents? I asked Sophia, trying to keep my voice calm. Sophia shrugged with the practiced nonchalance of a kid who's used to adult chaos. Mommy said they had to go somewhere important. She said you were coming to watch us. My heart started sinking as I looked around. There were signs everywhere that this had been planned, sippy cups on the coffee table, a bag of kid snacks, change of clothes laid out for the next day. This wasn't a spontaneous trip, this was a setup. That's when I saw it. A hastily written note on the kitchen counter in Annika's handwriting. Elena, so sorry we had to step out. Emergency came up with mom and dad. Please take care of the kids, we'll be back soon. There's food in the fridge. Thanks for being the best sister ever. Love you, Jay. I stared at the note, reading it 3 times as the reality hit me. They had lured me here under false pretenses to babysit. Not even babysit, to be abandoned with 3 children while they all went off and did whatever they wanted. My phone buzzed with a text from Annika, don't forget to take the trash out and feed them dinner. Sophia knows the bedtime routine. You're a lifesaver, heart emoji. The audacity was breathtaking. Not even a request or an apology, just instructions, like I was hired help who should be grateful for the privilege. I looked at the kids, who were watching me with the kind of careful attention children develop when they're used to reading adult moods for their own safety. Sophia was clearly the parentified eldest, already moving to comfort Lara when she sensed tension. Are you guys hungry? I asked, forcing a smile. We had McDonald's earlier, Sophia said. But Lara might want her milk before bed. I needed to think, and I needed to keep the kids calm while I figured out what to do. The reasonable part of me wanted to just suck it up, watch them for whatever weekend adventure my family had planned, and have a serious conversation with everyone when they returned. But I was done being reasonable. I was done being the reliable one who could be manipulated and taken advantage of. They had tricked me into spending money I didn't have on canceled weekend plans, lied to me about the purpose of the visit, and dumped 3 children on me without even asking. As I got Lara her milk and settled the kids back on the couch, a thought occurred to me. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found Thomas's number. Annika had painted Thomas as the villain in their divorce, but I'd always liked him. He was stable, responsible, and genuinely loved his kids. From what I'd observed, he'd been trying to get more custody time, but Annika liked having the kids as leverage and sympathy generators. She was always posting on social media about how hard it was being a single mom, but somehow never mentioned that Thomas was regularly asking for extra time with them. I hadn't spoken to Thomas since the divorce finalized, but I still had his number from back when I'd lived locally and we'd coordinated kid pickup times when Annika inevitably ran late. Looking at Sophia trying to keep Tyler awake enough to brush his teeth, and Lara asking for her blankie, I made a decision that felt both impulsive and completely right. I called Thomas. He answered on the second ring. Elena? Is everything okay? Hi Thomas. I'm sorry to call so late, but I'm actually at my parents' house with Sophia, Tyler, and Lara. Annika and my parents left them here with me without any warning, and I was wondering, are you available to pick up the kids? There was a pause. What do you mean they left them with you? I explained the whole situation, the fake family visit, the note, Annika's text. Thomas's voice got tighter as I talked. So they flew you out under false pretenses to provide free childcare while they went off somewhere together? That's exactly what happened. And Annika didn't ask you beforehand if you were willing to watch them? Nope. I walked into the house expecting to see my parents and found 3 kids and a note instead. Thomas was quiet for a long moment. Elena, I don't know if you know this, but it's actually my weekend with the kids. I've been texting Annika all day asking when I could pick them up, and she kept saying they were busy with family stuff and maybe next weekend instead. My blood pressure spiked. Not only had they tricked me into free babysitting, they'd also kept the kids from their father during his scheduled custody time. Are you serious? Dead serious. I have the custody agreement right here. I'm supposed to have them Friday evening through Sunday evening every other weekend. This is my weekend. The pieces clicked into place. Annika had probably planned some kind of getaway with our parents, didn't want to give up her custody weekend, and decided to kill 2 birds with 1 stone by tricking me into providing childcare. If you want to come get them, I think they'd love to see you, I said. Sophia was asking about you earlier. I'll be there in 30 minutes. While I waited for Thomas, I helped the kids gather some clothes and toys. Sophia was excited when I told her Daddy was coming to get them, and even Tyler perked up. They clearly missed their father. Is Mommy in trouble? Sophia asked with the intuitive wisdom of a child who's learned to read between the lines. No, sweetie. But your daddy missed you and wants to spend the weekend with you like he was supposed to. Thomas arrived exactly 30 minutes later. He looked older than I remembered, but he lit up when he saw the kids. Sophia ran straight into his arms, and he scooped up Lara while giving Tyler a side hug. Thank you, he said to me quietly while the kids gathered their things. I can't believe she did this to you. I can't believe she kept them from you on your weekend. He shook his head grimly. It's been happening more and more. She'll make last-minute excuses or suddenly have family plans that conflict with the custody schedule. My lawyer says this pattern of interference is building a strong case for parental alienation, but we've been documenting everything for months to prove it in court. Well, you've got witnesses now, I said. And probably some text evidence. Thomas's expression sharpened. What do you mean? I showed him Annika's text about feeding the kids and taking out the trash. She sent this after abandoning them with me. And I'm betting she's got text messages lying to you about why you couldn't have them this weekend. He screenshotted everything I was willing to share. Elena, this could actually be really helpful for the custody case. Then I hope it helps. After Thomas and the kids left, with promises that he'd bring them by to see me properly before I flew back, I sat in my parents' empty house and planned my next move. I could have just gone to a hotel, flown back early, and written them all off forever. But I was angry, and I wanted them to face some consequences for their manipulation. I started by taking photos of everything: the note, the kids' belongings they'd left behind, the evidence that this had been premeditated. Then I drafted a text to the family group chat that included my parents and Annika. Just wanted to let you all know that the kids are safe and happy with their father for his custody weekend. I called Thomas to pick them up since you all seem to have forgotten he was supposed to have them anyway. Interesting that you planned a family getaway during his custody time and forgot to mention that's what this really was. I'll be at a hotel until my flight home. Thanks for the memorable visit. I sent it and immediately turned off my phone. I booked myself a room at a nearby hotel, ordered room service, and tried to process what had happened. Part of me felt guilty. What if there really had been some emergency? But the premeditated nature of everything, combined with Thomas's revelation about the custody schedule, made it clear this had been planned. I turned my phone back on Saturday morning to 23 missed calls and dozens of text messages. From Annika: Elena, what the fuck did you do? Where are my kids? Call me right now. From my mom: honey, please call us. There's been a misunderstanding. We can explain everything. From my dad: Elena, we need to talk. This is getting out of hand. And about 20 more increasingly frantic messages from all three of them. I called Thomas instead. How are the kids doing? They're great. We went to the zoo this morning, and now we're making pancakes. Sophia asked if you wanted to come over for lunch. I'd love that. I spent Saturday afternoon with Thomas and the kids at his apartment. It was a modest but warm place, clearly set up with children in mind. There were art supplies on the kitchen table, family photos on the walls, and that lived-in feeling of a home where kids are genuinely welcomed. Over lunch, Sophia told me about school, Tyler showed me his new Pokémon cards, and Laura insisted on helping make cookies for dessert. It was the kind of relaxed family time I'd expected to have with my own family. Thomas and I talked while the kids played. He told me more about the custody battles, how Annika had been making it increasingly difficult for him to maintain a relationship with his children. She'd cancel visits at the last minute, make plans during his time without consulting him, and constantly paint him as unreliable to the kids even though he'd never missed a scheduled visit. The thing is, he said, I don't think she even enjoys having them full-time. She's always trying to get other people to watch them. But she won't let me have extra time because she knows consistent custody is how I'll eventually get 50-50 instead of every other weekend. My phone had been buzzing constantly, but I ignored it until around 4 p.m. when a different number called. It was my mom, calling from what I assumed was my dad's phone. Elena, please, we need to talk. Where are you, Mom? We're in Vegas. But we're coming home tonight. There's been a terrible misunderstanding. What kind of misunderstanding? Annika said you'd offered to watch the kids for the weekend. She said you'd specifically asked to spend time with them while we took a little getaway for our anniversary. I almost laughed. Mom, you told me this was a family reunion because you missed me so much. You said Annika was excited to see me. You made it sound like we were all going to spend the weekend together. Silence. And Mom? It was Thomas's custody weekend. Annika was legally supposed to give the kids to their father on Friday night. Instead, she dumped them on me and took off to Vegas with you and Dad. More silence. The kids are safe and happy with their father, where they were supposed to be in the first place. I'm going to enjoy the rest of my weekend, and I'll be flying home Sunday as planned. Elena, please. Annika is beside herself. She's talking about calling the police. To report what? That her ex-husband picked up his children during his court-ordered custody time? That should be an interesting conversation. I hung up and turned my phone off again. Sunday morning, I got a ride to the airport early. I'd managed to change my flight to leave several hours sooner than planned, partly because I wanted to avoid any airport confrontations, and partly because I was ready to be home. As I was going through security, I saw them. My parents and Annika were clearly rushing through the terminal, looking frantic and scanning the crowds. Annika was still in what looked like Vegas clothes, a sparkly dress that was completely inappropriate for 9 a.m. at Cleveland Hopkins. I ducked behind a pillar and waited until they passed before continuing to my gate. During the layover in Denver, I finally turned my phone back on to dozens more messages. But there were also some new ones that made me smile. From Thomas, thank you again for yesterday. The kids keep asking when Aunt Elena is coming back to visit. They had such a good time. And a series of photos of Sophia, Tyler, and Laura playing at a park, grinning at the camera. There were also messages from Annika that had evolved from anger to bargaining. Elena, please just tell me you're okay. We can work this out. I'm sorry if there was a miscommunication. And from my parents, we're back home. When you're ready to talk, we're here. We love you. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I took a photo of the mountains visible from the Denver airport and posted it to my Instagram with the caption, "Sometimes the best family time is with people who actually respect you," airplane emoji. The flight back to Portland gave me time to think about what I wanted to do next. Part of me wanted to cut them off completely, but another part thought maybe this could be a turning point, a moment where we finally established some healthy boundaries. I decided to give it a week before responding to anyone. When I got home Sunday night, I had a voicemail from Thomas. "Elena, I wanted to give you an update. My lawyer says the documentation you helped provide, combined with Annika's text messages and the fact that this was the 4th time in 2 months she's violated the custody order, gives us a strong case for modifying the custody agreement. The kids asked me to tell you thank you for the fun day yesterday, and Sophia wants to know if you have an address where she can send you a drawing. Hope your flight was good." That made me smile for the first time since this whole thing started. I also had an email from my boss asking how my family visit went. I realized I'd have to explain why I was taking Monday off to recover from a weekend that was supposed to be relaxing. Monday evening, I finally called my parents back. "Elena. Oh honey, we've been so worried." "I'm fine, Mom. But we need to talk about what happened." "Of course. We want to explain." "No, I need you to listen first." I laid it out clearly. How they'd lied to me about the purpose of the visit. How Annika had manipulated the situation to get free childcare while violating her custody agreement. How I felt ambushed and taken advantage of. "But Elena," my dad interjected, "Annika really needed this break. She's been struggling so much as a single mom." "Dad, she kept the kids from their father during his scheduled weekend so she could go party in Vegas. That's not struggling, that's being selfish and irresponsible. You don't understand how hard it is for her. I understand that she's been using her kids as props for sympathy while keeping them from a father who loves them. And I understand that you all thought it was okay to lie to me and manipulate me into providing free childcare." There was a long pause. "What do you want from us, Elena?" my mom asked quietly. "I want an apology. A real one, not an excuse about miscommunication. I want acknowledgement that what you did was wrong. And I want some assurance that it won't happen again." "Of course, honey. We're sorry. We should have been more upfront about what Annika needed." "Mom, you're still doing it. This isn't about what Annika needed. This is about lying to me and manipulating me." I could hear my dad talking to my mom in the background, though I couldn't make out the words. "Elena," my mom said finally, "we love you, and we're sorry we handled this badly. But Annika is really upset about you taking her kids to Thomas without permission. It was Thomas's custody weekend. I didn't need Annika's permission. She's talking about filing a police report." "For what?" "I called the children's father to pick them up during his court-ordered custody time. Annika is the one who violated the custody agreement." That seemed to end the conversation pretty quickly. I didn't hear from any of them for 3 days. Then Annika called. "Elena, we need to talk." "Okay. I'm sorry about the miscommunication this weekend." "What exactly are you apologizing for, Annika?" For not being clearer about what we needed." "Try again." A pause. "For not asking you directly if you'd be willing to watch the kids." And for not coordinating better with Thomas about the custody schedule." It wasn't a great apology, but it was something. "Annika, why didn't you just ask me if I'd be willing to babysit? I might have said yes if you'd been honest about what you needed." "Because you always say no." "That's not true." "It is true. Ever since you moved away, you act like you're too good for our family. And there it was, the real issue." "Annika, I moved away because I got tired of being your unpaid nanny. I have my own life and my own responsibilities. I never asked you to be my nanny. You asked me to babysit almost every weekend when I lived here. You'd call at the last minute with emergencies that always seemed to involve your social life. I needed help. And now you're getting it from the right person, the kid's father." There was a long silence. "The kids miss you," she said finally. "I miss them too. But I'm not going to be manipulated into spending time with them." "So what does this mean? Are you just never going to visit again?" "I don't know, Annika. That depends on whether you can treat me like a sister instead of like free childcare." We didn't resolve much on that call, but at least we were talking. Over the next few weeks, I got regular updates from Thomas about the kids. Sophia had indeed sent me a drawing, A picture of all of us at the zoo with "Thank you Aunt Elena" written in careful 8-year-old handwriting. Tyler had started asking when he could video call me, and Laura apparently told everyone at preschool about her funny aunt who made cookies. Thomas's lawyer had filed for a custody modification based on Annika's violation of the court order and her pattern of interfering with his parental time. The case was moving forward, and Thomas was optimistic about getting equal custody. "The kids are happier," he told me during one of our calls. "I think they feel more secure knowing they'll see me regularly, regardless of what Annika decides to do on any given weekend." My relationship with my parents slowly started to improve. They seemed to finally understand that they'd crossed a line, though I'm not sure they fully grasped why I'd reacted so strongly. We started having regular phone calls again, but I made it clear that future visits would need to be planned honestly and without hidden agendas. Annika and I were still working things out. She'd started therapy, which she mentioned casually like it was something she'd been considering anyway rather than something necessitated by losing custody time with her kids. Baby steps, I guess. The real victory, though, was hearing from Sophia, Tyler, and Laura. Thomas set up regular video calls where we could talk and play games together. Sophia told me about school, Tyler showed me his latest Pokemon acquisitions, and Laura just liked to sing songs and show me her toys. It was the kind of relationship with them I'd always wanted, one based on genuine affection rather than emergency babysitting. 3 months later, I got a call from Annika that surprised me. "Elena, I owe you an apology. A real one. Okay? What we did to you was horrible. We lied to you, manipulated you, and took advantage of your love for the kids. And I've been lying to myself about why my marriage ended and why I've been making things difficult for Thomas." This was unexpected. "I'm listening." "My therapist helped me see that I've been using the kids to control Thomas, and using family guilt to control you. It wasn't fair to anyone, especially not the kids." "What changed?" "Seeing how happy Sophia, Tyler, and Laura are now that they get to see their dad regularly. And realizing that you calling Thomas that night probably saved me from making everything much worse." "How so?" "I was going to keep pushing the boundaries until Thomas took me to court for contempt. His lawyer says I could have lost primary custody completely if I'd kept violating the court orders. You calling him that weekend actually protected my relationship with the kids in the long run." It was the most mature thing I'd ever heard Annika say. "I'm glad you're working on things," I said. "I want to ask you something, and I want you to know it's okay if you say no." "What?" "The kids are asking if you'd come visit for Sophia's birthday next month. Not to babysit or help out, just to be their aunt. Thomas would be there too, and my parents. Just a normal family birthday party." I thought about it. "Would you promise not to stick me with unexpected childcare duties?" "I promise. And if I break that promise, you have my permission to call Thomas immediately." I laughed. "Deal." Sophia's birthday party was the first normal family gathering we'd had in years. Thomas and Annika were civil to each other, my parents were genuinely happy to see me without any hidden agendas, and the kids were just excited to have everyone they loved in the same place. I watched Annika interact with Thomas and saw something I hadn't seen before: respect. They talked about the kids' school schedules and upcoming events like co-parents instead of adversaries. It wasn't perfect, but it was functional. During the party, Sophia pulled me aside. "Aunt Elena, are you going to keep visiting us now?" "If you want me to." "I do. And I want to visit you in Portland someday." "I'd love that. Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "That night when you called Daddy to come get us, were you mad at Mommy?" I thought carefully about how to answer. I was upset that grown-ups weren't being honest with each other. But I wasn't mad at you kids. I just wanted to make sure you were somewhere you were supposed to be. Sophia nodded seriously. "Daddy says sometimes grown-ups make mistakes but they can learn to do better." "You're Daddy's right. Are you and Mommy going to do better now?" I looked across the room at Annika, who was laughing at something Tyler had said while helping Laura with her birthday cake. "I think we're going to try." What I didn't tell Sophia was how much had changed behind the scenes since that weekend. The ripple effects of my decision to call Thomas had been more far-reaching than I'd initially realized. A few weeks after the birthday party, Thomas called me with an update that left me stunned. "Elena, I need to tell you something about what Annika was really doing that weekend in Vegas." "What do you mean?" "My lawyer did some digging as part of the custody case. Apparently, Annika wasn't just on a family vacation with your parents. She was there with someone she'd been seeing, a guy named Marcus who lives in Las Vegas." I sat down hard on my couch. "Are you serious?" "Dead serious. Your parents didn't know about Marcus. Annika told them she needed a break and wanted to spend time bonding with them, but she was actually meeting up with this guy she'd been talking to online for months. She used your parents as cover and you as childcare so she could have a romantic weekend." The betrayal felt even deeper now. Not only had she manipulated me, but she'd also manipulated our parents, using their genuine desire to help her as single mother as a cover for what was essentially a dating weekend. Does she know that you know? My lawyer confronted her with the evidence during mediation. Hotel records, social media posts, the whole thing. She broke down and admitted everything. What did she say? That she was lonely and desperate, and she knew none of us would approve of her meeting some guy from the internet in Vegas. She thought if she could make it seem like a family emergency, everyone would go along with it. I thought about my parents, who had genuinely believed they were helping Annika through a difficult time as a single mother. They'd probably been excited about the idea of spending time with their daughter while also helping with the grandkids. How are my parents handling this? That's actually part of why I'm calling. Your mom reached out to me yesterday. She wanted to apologize for their part in what happened, and she asked if I thought you'd be willing to talk to them. I had been maintaining cordial but distant contact with my parents since Sophia's birthday party. We texted occasionally and had brief phone calls, but there was still tension around the Vegas incident. Learning that they'd been manipulated too actually made me feel more sympathetic toward them. What exactly did my mom say? She said they felt terrible about the whole situation, but they felt even worse knowing that Annika had used their love for her to manipulate everyone. She said they should have questioned why Annika needed them to fly you out if it was really just about needing a babysitter. That evening, I called my parents. My mom answered on the first ring. Elena, honey, I'm so glad you called. Thomas told me about Marcus. There was a long pause. We had no idea. We thought we were helping Annika reconnect with family while giving her a little break. We never imagined she was using us to cover for meeting some stranger from the internet. I know, Mom. I'm not angry at you and Dad anymore. You're not? You were trying to help your daughter. I get that. But what I don't understand is why you didn't think it was weird that Annika needed me to fly in from across the country just to babysit for a weekend. My dad got on the line. Honestly, Elena, we didn't think it through. Annika made it sound like she really wanted to reconnect with you, and we thought maybe this could be good for both of you. We should have asked more questions. The thing is, I said, even if Annika had been honest about needing a babysitter, it still wouldn't have been okay to lie to me about why you wanted me to visit. You're absolutely right, my mom said. We should have just asked you directly if you'd be willing to help. And I should have been given the choice to say no without guilt trips. Yes. We see that now. The conversation continued for over an hour. My parents told me more about what had happened from their perspective. Annika had called them in tears, saying she was overwhelmed and needed support. She'd suggested that maybe they could all spend a weekend together as a family, but she needed someone to help with the kids so she could actually relax and talk to them. She made it sound like the kids were the barrier to us having quality time together, my dad explained. Like if someone else could handle bedtime and meals, we could actually have meaningful conversations with her. But then she disappeared as soon as I arrived. That's when we realized something was wrong. We kept trying to call her Friday night and Saturday morning. She wasn't answering, and we had no idea where she'd gone. It turned out my parents had spent most of their Vegas weekend worried sick about Annika and trying to track her down. When they finally found her at Marcus's hotel Saturday afternoon, she'd spun a story about losing her phone and getting confused about the meetup times. We didn't know about Marcus until Sunday morning when we saw them together at breakfast, my mom said. That's when Annika finally admitted she'd been talking to him for months and this whole trip was really about meeting him. How did you react? We were furious, my dad said. Not about her dating someone new, but about the lies. About using us, about abandoning the kids with you without warning, about everything. That's when we realized we needed to come home immediately, my mom added. We booked the first flight we could get. Learning all of this context made me feel differently about the whole situation. My parents hadn't been willing participants in Annika's scheme, they'd been victims of it too, just like I had been. I'm sorry you got dragged into her mess, I told them. We're sorry we didn't protect you from it, my mom replied. That conversation looked at a real turning point in my relationship with my parents. Over the following months, we rebuilt our trust through honest communication. They started visiting me in Portland every few months, and I began looking forward to their calls again. Annika's relationship with Marcus didn't work out, which surprised no one except Annika. Apparently, meeting someone in person after months of online fantasy rarely lives up to expectations, especially when the meeting is built on a foundation of lies and manipulation. But the end of that relationship seemed to be another wake-up call for Annika. In therapy, she started examining why she felt the need to construct elaborate deceptions instead of just asking for what she needed directly. I think I was so used to people saying no to me that I started trying to engineer situations where they couldn't say no, she told me during one of our phone calls. But that just made everyone distrust me more. Why did you think people were always going to say no? Because I was always asking for things at the last minute, or asking for more than was reasonable, or not being honest about what I really needed help with. It was a moment of genuine self-reflection that gave me hope for our relationship. The most important outcome, though, continued to be the kids' well-being. With Thomas having equal custody and Annika working on her issues in therapy, Sophia, Tyler, and Laura were thriving. They had stability, consistency, and most importantly, they weren't being used as pawns in adult conflicts anymore. Sophia's academic performance improved dramatically once she didn't have to worry constantly about managing adult emotions. Tyler started participating in soccer, something he'd wanted to do but Annika had claimed was too complicated to coordinate. Laura, who had been showing signs of anxiety, became more outgoing and confident. During one of my video calls with them, Tyler said something that really stuck with me. "Aunt Elena, remember when you called Daddy that night?" "Yes, I remember. Sophia said you saved us, but I don't understand from what." I thought about how to explain it in a way a 6-year-old could understand. Sometimes adults make decisions that seem okay but aren't really fair to kids. I wanted to make sure you were with people who could take good care of you. "Like Daddy?" "Like your daddy, yes. And like your mommy too, when she's ready." "Are we safe now?" The question broke my heart because it revealed how much uncertainty these kids had been living with. "Yes, sweetie. You're safe. All the grown-ups who love you are working together now to make sure you're taken care of." That seemed to satisfy him, and he went back to showing me his latest Pokémon cards. But his question reminded me why my decision that night had been so important. It wasn't just about teaching Annika a lesson or setting boundaries with my family, it was about protecting 3 children who deserved stability and honesty from the adults in their lives. 6 months later, I can say that weekend was a turning point for our family, though not in the way anyone expected. Annika and Thomas now have equal custody, and the kids are thriving with the stability of knowing they'll see both parents regularly. Annika has continued therapy and started dating someone new, someone she actually asked to meet the kids instead of hiding her social life from them. My parents and I have rebuilt our relationship on more honest ground. They visit me in Portland now sometimes, and when I come home, it's for actual family time rather than unpaid labor. Most importantly, I have the relationship with my niece and nephews that I always wanted. Sophia video calls me to tell me about school projects, Tyler sends me photos of his Pokémon cards, and Laura just likes to talk to me while she plays. When they visit their dad, sometimes I join them for dinner or weekend activities. The whole experience taught me that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's dysfunction. If I just sucked it up and watched the kids that weekend, Annika would have learned that her manipulation tactics worked, my parents would have learned they could lie to me without consequences, and Thomas would have lost another weekend with his children. Instead, by doing exactly what they didn't expect, treating the situation logically rather than emotionally, everyone was forced to confront the reality of what they'd done. Annika learned that she couldn't use the kids as pawns in her personal drama. My parents learned that I wouldn't be manipulated by guilt and false emergencies. Thomas got the custody arrangement his children deserved. And I learned that setting boundaries, even when it feels harsh in the moment, can actually save relationships rather than destroy them. The kids got the best outcome of all, a family where the adults act like adults, where they can count on seeing both parents regularly, and where their aunt visits because she wants to, not because she's been tricked into it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even, it's refusing to play games that nobody actually wins.